I'm going to read from the Flamethrowers, and all you need to know is the narrator for most of the book is a young woman, and she moves to New York City from Reno, Nevada, and doesn't know anyone when she arrives there. And the scene I'll read, she encounters two people in a bar. "Why don't you sit down?" The man called to me in a nasal southern voice. "You're making us nervous." He wore a suit and tie, but there was something derelict about him, not detectable in his fine clothes. The woman looked up at me, a glisten of wet on her cheeks. "She's not making anybody nervous," she said, and wiped under her eyes with the pads of her fingers, careful not to scratch herself with long nails painted red. I realized I'd been wrong. She was not the pedigreed rich. He was, and she wasn't. Sometimes all the information is there in the first 5 minutes, laid out for inspection. Then it goes away, gets suppressed as a matter of pragmatism. It's too much to know a lot about strangers, but some don't end up strangers. They end up closer, and you had your 5 minutes to see what they were really like, and you missed it. "Come on, honey," she said to me in a voice like a soft bell. "Sit down, and Shithead will buy you a drink." "This is my wife," said the man. "Nadine." He said it again. "Nadine," and looked searchingly at her. She ignored him as if she were used to this audible pondering of her Nadine-ness in bars for the benefit of strangers. "We were at a wedding," Nadine said, turning to me. "They asked us to leave. They asked Thurman to leave, I mean. But I don't like weddings. They make my face hurt." That was how she spoke. "Why did they want you to leave?" I asked. But I could sense why. Something about their presence in an empty bar many levels below what the man's clothes might suggest. "Because Thurman lay down in the grass," Nadine said. "He started taking pictures of the sky, just blue sky, instead of the bride and groom. He'd had a few to—" "I did not have a few to. I was looking for something decent to photograph, something worth keeping, for posterity." "Oh, posterity," Nadine said. "Sure, great, if you can afford it. You could have just told Lester you didn't want to be the picture taker." There was a camera sitting in front of him on the bar, an expensive-looking Leica. "You're a photographer?" I asked him. "Nope." He smiled, revealing a tar stain on his teeth. "But the camera—" I couldn't think of how to say it. Just "you have a camera but aren't a photographer." I sensed he would only keep meandering away, like something you're trying to catch that continually evades your grasp. "Better to say yes," Thurman said, "and then disappoint people. I mean, really, let them down." "Lord knows you're good at that," Nadine said. "I'm talking about building a reputation." "So am I," she said. "All I want," Thurman said, "is for people to stop asking me to come to their weddings and funerals." "I don't mind funerals," Nadine said, "except when they buried my father in a purple casket. That was awful." She turned to me. "Thurman knew my daddy? Daddy was a mentor to him, a teacher?" "A mentor," I repeated, hoping this might lead somewhere to some explanation of who she and Thurman were, because they were someone or something. I was sure of it. "Well, my daddy was I guess you could say pimp. Pimp is acceptable, I mean, now that he's dead. And you know what? People don't say procurer anymore." Who knew what was true? "And my mother was a whore, so they got along perfectly." Probably nothing was true, but I liked the challenge of trying to talk to them. I had spoken to so few people since arriving that it felt logical to interact in this manner. It was direct and evasive, each in a way that made sense to me. May he rest in peace, Thurman said. A gentleman. I wanted to ask him for your hand in marriage. You were 14 and goddamn, I wanted to just marry the pants off you. He grinned and showed the stain on his teeth. But then there was no point. It wasn't marrying to get in your pants since you were allowing it. Not with me. Nadine frowned. Do you want a purple casket, Thurman? Because Blossom might have one all picked out for you, with a copper millennial vault to preserve your... He got up, walked to the end of the bar, and aimed his camera at a sign above the register. Sorry, no credit. 3 or 4 drinks in, still, they hadn't asked me anything. But what interesting thing did I have to tell? I was content to listen to their stream of half reports on people I'd never heard of, stories I could not follow, one about a baby named Koch. This lady was nursing him, Nadine said, and then another lady, and you begin to think, wait a minute, whose baby is Koch? I don't know who was his mother and who was a wet nurse. I'll make you a wet nurse, Thurman said, as he grabbed Nadine and put his hand between her legs. She twisted away, and then she was prattling about a McDonald's she once went to in Mexico. I had been in a McDonald's commercial when I was in high school, and I thought, as Nadine spoke, that it might be a story I could share with them. McDonald's is supposed to be the same everywhere, right? Well, not in Mexico. They Mexicanize it. Hamburguesa con chile, no fries, frijoles. I was with my ex, we were starving, and I was ready to eat beans. We're at the counter and find out we have no money. He lost his wallet. She went on about this ex, the revolution he had been fomenting that never took place and had led to their harsh and vagrant life in the mountains of northern Mexico, the hole in his pocket that his wallet wiggled through, leading to his inability to provide for her the most fundamental thing, a McDonald's hamburger. That was how she put it, that he couldn't provide even a hamburger, after which she left him and went to Hollywood, where the nightmare really began, a series of episodes and hard luck that involved rape, prostitution, and an addiction to Freon, the gas from the cooling element in refrigerators. What you get, Thurman said when she was finally finished, for marrying that motherfucker. I don't want to talk about him, and don't call him that. You brought him up, only to tell her about the Mexican McDonald's. I was in a McDonald's commercial, I said. Oh, you're an actress. No, I just did the one thing. I was 16, and it was something, an ad our coach answered, and Thurman, she's an actress. Well, we did act, I guess, but that's not that they needed a girl who could ski, and so You're an actress and a skier? I never meet anyone who skis. Do you ski, I asked, only vaguely hopeful. Do I ski? No, honey. The commercial's director and crew had come to Mount Rose, where we trained. They talked to our coach and ended up choosing me and a racer named Lisa, a quiet girl no one really knew. There was a long day of takes and retakes. They wanted 2 girls with hair flying, snow bunnies, on a brisk, sunny afternoon. A week later, they flew us both to Los Angeles, to a strange McDonald's in the city of industry where they only filmed commercials. It looked like a regular McDonald's, with cashiers in paper hats, a menu board, the plastic bench tables where Lisa and I sat across from each other and smiled as if we were friends, although we weren't, each of us holding a hamburger in our fingers with hot lights on us, in this fake restaurant that looked real, except they didn't serve customers. I tried to explain this to Nadine, but she kept interrupting me. When we finished shooting the ad, I flew home to Reno. Lisa was supposed to be on the flight, but she wasn't. She was 18, an adult, and I didn't wonder. She had apparently gone to a bar near the fake McDonald's in the city of industry. No one ever heard from her again. Freaky, Nadine said. There's no telling. Once I met the serial killer, Ted Bundy. Can you believe it? He was real handsome, real smooth. I was on a beach, and here comes this hunky college guy. I was this close to ending up like that gal in the commercial with you. It hadn't occurred to me that Lisa had been murdered. I assumed she'd been impatient to meet her future and had just fled into it and never bothered to let anyone know where she was. I miss Los Angeles, Nadine said. Don't you? I was only there for one night, I said, in the city of industry, which isn't really Los Angeles, and so the way the palm trees shake around, she went on, and it sounds like rain, but everything is sun reflected on metal. I once went to a house in the Hollywood Hills. There was a glass dome on a pole, its elevator shaft. Belonged to a pervert bachelor, and he had peepholes everywhere. He was watching me in the toilet. Same guy drugged me without asking first. Angel dust. I was on roller skates, which presented a whole extra challenge. Thurman was laughing. I understood she was his airy nonsense maker, a bubble machine, and occasionally he would be in the mood for that. How the hell did you manage? Drugged on skates, he asked her. Like I said, there was an elevator. Anyhow, there's some use in being doped against your will. Before it happened, I didn't have my natural defenses. Some people don't get the whole boundaries thing until they've had their mind raped by another person. It helped me to establish some kind of minimum standard. She turned to me. Did you see Clute? Yeah, I said I did. I liked it, she said. He didn't. She gestured at Thurman. She wasn't curious what I thought of Clute. But that very film had been on my mind, this portrait of a woman who was alone and isolated in the city. In my empty apartment, I'd been thinking of the scene where her phone rings. She answers, and no one is there.